Happy times. Welcome y'all to the Austin OWASP chapter meeting for October 2020, one of our very rare ones for October because this year, unfortunately, we're not having LastCon. Welcome, glad y'all could attend. Glad we'll have a good turnout here. Not sure how many folks got, about almost 30 folks on there. So it's a good thing. Just going to run through the usual slide deck here, which is our chapter leadership. There I am at the top, Kyle Smith. If you have any questions or any comments about this, you can always email me at kyle.smith@owasp.org, and I will try to get back to you. There's the rest of the folks there, and I'm using the wrong computer. There we go. CPEs, we have those. Please email me, and I'll try to get you a CPA PDF, basically. But please don't inundate me with that, but it does take me a little time to get those things out, but I will get them to you as soon as I can. Support OWASP, there's lots of leadership opportunities. You saw the leadership list before. There's also volunteer opportunities, which we're going to start spinning up our LastCon 2021 team. So we're going to need some assistance there. So you have a lot of possibilities there, anywhere from, if you like, kind of doing PM work, helping to finagle a lot of the folks there on doing the activities, to talking to vendors, to talking to sponsors, talking to speakers, being a speaker wrangler. I think we have a lot of these folks that are kind of carry over from year to year, but we always like to have assistance on doing these things and carry on. There's other ways to support OWASP at Amazon.smile. Since OWASP is a 501c3 organization, keep that in mind. Your company may match with tax deductions. There are many OWASP memberships. You can go on for $50 a year, $95 for 2 years, or even $500 for a lifetime. And to be in some of the leadership positions, or OWASP is now meaning you must be a member to be in a leadership position. There are various corporate ones. You can talk to Beth or myself about the Beth Sauter here is also the membership coordinator, but you can talk to her or myself about corporate sponsorships, and we'll probably help to lead you off to the foundation. There's a mailing list. I think it gets about one message a month, which is usually me announcing this meeting, so it's very quiet. If anybody cares to join it, it's a Google group. Check it out at austin.owasp.org, and the availability is there. Actually, all our information is at austin.owasp.org, so you can find it there. We have a few Slacks. OWASP itself has a OWASP at Slack, which you can see that's the second link there. But prior to that, we set up an Austin OWASP Slack channel, which is a shared invite if you want to follow that link. And there's actually a LastCon one, but we still haven't got that link working right, so it's still kind of TBA, but it is out there. We can try to send you a personal invite if anybody wants it. Just send me an email. We are now on Meetup. We've been there for a few months now. It's working pretty well. Hopefully, once you all followed it from us, followed to this meeting from it, whatever. Has many members, 86 here. I don't know what it's up to today, but it's more than that. Thank you all for coming. We still have a LinkedIn group. There's very little activity on there. Some people used to post jobs and things like that because the LinkedIn's good business opportunities and job opportunities. So if you want to post anything there, we have an Austin chapter. And of course, all these chapter meetings are recorded, so we have them up on YouTube eventually. I think I haven't gotten last month's up, even though Josh was kind enough to save it and send it to me. And we have a classic one of legacy ones and archives on Vimeo. Those are not being transferred over because there's a lot of them we've been doing. They've been great about creating these videos, and we probably have going back almost 10 years now since the chapter started. The study group is ongoing. It's every Thursday, 12 to 1. Matt.Pardo at OWASP.org is the education coordinator. You can contact him. But actually, the best way is to join our Slack channels, because there is a study group channel. Whatever, I can't remember what the term is. There's a study group organization under there about what they talk about and just general learning that they like to do there. It's really great. And here's, like I said, we canceled it, unfortunately. Well, hopefully we should be back in 2021. We're trying to kind of spin all that up, so we'll see how that goes next year. And we're still, unfortunately, not having the happy hours. It was supposed to be November 12th for next month, but obviously it's canceled because the OWASP itself has some restrictions on what they want to do, that they want to allow to have their name kind of branded with. So we'll try to see about spinning that up maybe in January if everything goes better, but we'll see. And there's other upcoming local events, which I did not put any dates on here, unfortunately. unfortunately. There's AHA, there's ISC Squared, Cloud Austin, ISSA. I know they just announced their November meeting, so there's ACP, there's bound to be others. Does anybody want to come off mute and talk about any others that I didn't document here? Guess not. That's not a problem. There's a lot out there. Go to Meetup, and there's actually ISSA has a very good calendar. At one point, at least, it's still pretty good about what different meetups are out there and meetings. Job opportunities. I know there's action going on out there for job openings and searchers and finders and anything like that. Is you might want to come off mute and talk if they're looking or have anything to offer.
Hi, this is Matt Fitzpatrick. I'm looking for work. I've been working either in DevOps or system admin. Would love to find a way to get to DevSecOps. And I'll leave my email in the chat.
There you go. That's great. Thanks, Matt. Welcome. Glad you can join us. Hope you can find something soon. Anyone else?
As usual, Cloudflare is still hiring some additional people in security and other technical operations roles. So cloudflare.com, where you guys can message me as well.
That was Beth, if y'all want to, if no one saw that. So
sorry,
she's a great contact. Yeah, no problems there. We are not having a meeting November because it usually corresponds with kind of around Thanksgiving, so it's kind of tough. And then December is obviously kind of Christmas, so we're not having one then. But if you want to talk for next year, Kate Brew is our speaker coordinator still. I believe her email is just katebrew@owasp.org, no dot in her name. So please reach out to her and contact her and see if you want to be a speaker. And now, presenting Allie Mellen, Mobile Security in a Remote World. See if I can change over to you here and give you the ownership of this because the way I got to do it now.
Hey everyone, it's great to meet you. It's great to be here. And I should say Cybereason's hiring as well. If anyone is looking for a role, just cybereason.com. There are lots of different jobs up. I'll share my screen.
Yep.
Okay, continue. Let's see if that worked. How is that? Looks good.
Looks good from here.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to be with you guys. I am based in New York City, but my first introduction actually to Austin in general was LastCon last year, thanks to Kate. So it's a pleasure to be here with you guys. And I'm going to be talking about mobile security in a remote world. And apologies for the sound of that car backing up. Unfortunately, it is New York City. So my name is Allie Mellen. I'm a security strategist in the office of the CSO at Cybereason. I've been with Cybereason for 2 years, in the security space for 3 years, and I've spent the past 10 years in tech. Before I was in security, I was working in mobile app development, running my own business, doing mobile app development, mostly iOS, but also dabbling in Android. And so I've always been very curious about the security side of mobile app development, but it just became more important to me as I transitioned back into security and also got to reflect on the difficulties with securing mobile applications, securing mobile devices, and now thinking about that at an enterprise level. So that's what we're going to talk about today. I want to start with security today, get into a little bit about what mobile really is, how to actually defend mobile devices, why that's important. And then I want to break down a really cool piece of mobile malware research that our research team saw at the very early stages, which I hope you guys like. And then talk about what I see as the approach we need to take for the future when addressing mobile threats at the enterprise level. So before I start talking about security today, of course, I need to talk about security yesterday. because we've had such a huge shift. But even before the past year, we saw mobile devices really becoming so much more prominent in the business setting. We've really accelerated through this digital transformation, and it's more than just now all being locked in at home. It was happening way before that, and it was really important before that. So before 2020, the enterprise makeup was a mix of bring your own company owned and custom devices. Custom devices might look like point of sale systems, for example. Bring your own devices. That's a lot of laptops. It's also a lot of mobile devices. 26% of companies actually were giving smartphones to their employees, and 87% of organizations were actually expecting their workers to use their personal phone for work. So that's a huge disparity, because how are you supposed to secure a device that you don't actually own? And how do you handle situations where employees are accessing potentially sensitive corporate data on devices that they also use to access all their own personal data? And so I want to ask you guys if you use your personal smartphone for work. I personally do, not just because I have a bad work-life balance, but also because I find it very convenient. And especially when we were going into the office, I would find that on the train ride into work or on the Uber into work or whatever the case may be, I would use it for emails consistently, for Slack always, and sometimes even to access Google Drive if I needed to. And because of this dramatic shift we've seen to people using mobile devices, 60% of devices containing or accessing enterprise data are mobile. And this is before the pandemic. And that's a huge number, especially when you think about how much time you spend on your laptop during a day of work. But still, the majority of devices that are actually accessing enterprise data are mobile devices. So a huge threat. I would say largely not ignored isn't the right word, but not necessarily addressed to the full extent by enterprises at this point. Further, the threat is even more dangerous on a mobile device. Enterprise users are 3 times more likely to fall for a phishing link on a small screen than on a desktop. So you have this device that you're using very often to access corporate data, and you're much more likely to fall for a phishing link, which we know people are already pretty likely to fall for a phishing link. I can only imagine when you have a phishing link come through on WhatsApp or through Twitter or through whatever the case may be, messages. It's not just about email. Now let's jump into security today. We know that the majority of companies, something like 74% of companies, plan to permanently shift to remote work post-COVID. And if anything, that is just becoming more and more apparent as we continue to not be able to go back in the office, unfortunately. I know at Cybereason, we are seeing a big dramatic shift. We're all remote for the foreseeable future, and we actually closed down one of our smallest office spaces. So all the employees are still with us, but they're all working remotely now, and that was our London office. So very big shift. And because of that, a lot of people are using their phones at home. They're using their personal devices to access work. They're using really whatever they can, because life just looks very different now. And so securing it also needs to be addressed. While we were seeing this natural shift to bring your own devices before COVID, now it's even worse. And it's caused by so much frustration around actually being able to juggle all of the things you have going on in your life. For example, even with a personal device like a laptop, if you need to share your laptop with your son or daughter so that they can do their schoolwork and you can do your work, they still have access to this device that potentially could be accessing corporate data from home. And they might be downloading applications that you don't know about, that they want to play games on. And the same thing, especially for the phone or for an iPad, which you may use to communicate with your coworkers on Slack, or may use to access financial information for your company if you have a mobile application for banking, but that you then give to your child when you have a really important meeting and you need to make sure that they're just going to play a game for the next half hour. So that can be a real challenge. And we're seeing too that the use of mobile devices in these settings is even more prominent for remote work, because now you need to take your dog for a walk midway through the day. And if you're in a fast-paced work environment, you need to make sure that you're constantly responsive. You're probably going to take your mobile device, you're going to have Slack or whatever the case may be, email, and you're going to be checking it as you go on your walk. Or similarly, if you need to take your kids to the park or take them to school or whatever the case may be, you need to find a way to balance your work responsibilities with a very different home life. So things become very blurry very quickly. And so I want to take a step back from that and talk about what mobile really is. Because traditionally we think of mobile as a smartphone, but laptops allow you to be mobile. You can carry them around, you can leave the house with them, you can do anything. What are the constraints that we define around mobile, and why do we define those constraints? You can also consider things like a drone or like an IoT device, or even with a messier situation, say a hospital device that you actually have the device, which is an IoT device, and then you have your phone, which connects to it to share patient data. That's this weird gray area with mobile devices that needs to be taken into account, especially as we see hospitals being targeted more and more. So when it comes to what the actual risk looks like, I box it into two different categories. The first is on-device risks. And the second, I think more interesting one, but depending on the creativity of the attacker, either could be very interesting, is the entry point into the enterprise. So let's start with the on-device risks. We see things like immediately, of course, the attacker could access anything that is in device storage. That could be immediately some corporate data or some contact data. The next is the potential for network tapping, and also, interestingly, authentication factors. So we'll see this in the research that I'm going to talk about later, is how they can actually bypass two-factor authentication by having access to the device, which can be very tricky and can cause a lot of trouble, especially as people are trying to protect their accounts and thinking that they're doing a good job at security. The next is business application functions, which we're going to delve into a little bit next. And then, of course, surveillance. Because basically you have this little device strapped to you that, as we know as developers, has a microphone, a camera, a GPS, an accelerometer. And we saw this being used very effectively with Operation Soft Cell last year, where attackers were using call detail records to track high-value targets. If they, instead of gaining access to the telecommunications provider, were able to get access to the device itself, then they could not only track the person, but also take pictures of them, record them. There's a lot of opportunity there, for example, for nation state attackers to really effectively use that to their advantage. And also think about if you have any of these on your phone, or if any of your coworkers have these on your phone, because as security professionals, we may take this a different way, but it's so convenient to have a business application available on your device that it's easy to imagine a world where some of our coworkers may do this. Things like Salesforce or DocuSign is a big one, Asana, and then also ones like Zoom and Google Drive. So while Asana may not seem like a huge threat, it's a project management tool. Who knows what type of information you'll get? This threat becomes very real when you think about things like DocuSign, where a lot of legal documents are taken care of and are important to keep private and keep protected. Similarly, Salesforce has a lot of customer data, and applications like Google Drive store a lot of presentations and information that you would not necessarily want accessed by the public. Of course, it helps if you are able to properly organize your Google Drive and set permissions in such a way that that won't be as much of a factor. But there's a lot of factors at play here that you'd have to address in order to make sure that that's safe. And as we know, there's always room for missteps with stuff like that. The second is really that enterprise entry point. So imagine back pre-COVID times when you had your mobile device, you went to a coffee shop, you connected it to the Wi-Fi network because you thought it was trusted. It was named Starbucks Wi-Fi, but you didn't know that the actual Starbucks Wi-Fi is named Starbucks. And you'll get a piece of mobile malware on your device. You go into work and you connect to the enterprise network. And now you're connected to your coworker Jane's laptop. You also have a direct line to some hospital equipment, say that you work in a hospital, and other devices as well that you can then go and infect. And so the way that I like to think about this is that this mobile device is basically the server in the middle of nowhere that nobody knows about, that is able to give an attacker access to your environment, but every single person in your company has one. And what's particularly important here is that it's also invisible. If you have standard security controls in place, they're most likely going to pick up and understand what's coming in when someone gets a piece of mobile malware on your device, or sorry, traditional malware on your device. Like say you have an endpoint protection platform, they're not always, but in a lot of cases, able to stop those types of threats. But when you have a piece of mobile malware and you don't have a solution that is able to see threats on that device, you start to get in trouble because it's this blind spot for you and you can't even see the source of the attack from start. And further, we know that 80% of malicious applications have access to internal networks and are scanning nearby ports. So they're trying to expand. They're trying to find another target. Now, traditional mobile security solutions, a lot of times it's things like mobile threat detection, are able to take in data. They're able to do analytics on that data. They're able to use that to prevent threats, detect, and remediate efficiently, which is great. It's all great. However, we in the security industry and in a SOC have like 25 plus different security tools that we have to use on a regular basis. And from my point of view, adding another solution onto that stack, paying another vendor money, doing that whole thing is just not the best way to approach this. It's not a way to approach this that's going to enable us to be more secure in the future and to address new types of technology as we continue to grow and as technology continues to get better. But what we see with enterprise mobile security right now is a lot of organizations choose a mobile threat detection solution combined with mobile device management or enterprise mobility management. So for those of you asking the question, what about MDM or EMM? It's not meant to be conflicting, but it's meant to work together. It's complementary. MDM is like that IT security side of the stack, all about hygiene, policy. Mobile threat detection is there for the stuff that the policy and the things that you have set up for anything that gets through that. So it has to be complementary and it has to work together. Now let's look at this really interesting piece of research called EventBot, which our research team at Cybereason found. And I think it's fascinating. It is for Android, but still they found it very early in the life cycle. It's a mobile banking Trojan that targets financial services applications, and it's looking to gather user data. It was specifically targeting the US and Europe, and it targeted over 200 different financial applications, which is huge. And some of them are very popular, things like Capital One UK, PayPal Business, there's Revolut over here, Santander UK. There's also TransferWise, which I personally use on my phone, but I have an iPhone. There's also Coinbase, there's ING Direct, and Unicredit. So we can see it targets a very wide swath of very popular applications, and a lot of them are business applications. So what did this attack look like? It started with an unsuspecting user downloading the application. And the team saw this so early that they were actually able to see the application and the attacker developing the application to make it appear as legitimate as possible. Their ultimate goal was to get it on the Google Play Store. At the time that the team saw it, they did not see it on the Google Play Store, but the attackers were iteratively improving it to try and get it up there. So a user downloads this application, say it's masquerading as a calculator, which there are so many on the App Store. Once it's downloaded, it just asks the user for control of accessibility features. And from there, it just starts to run in the background. And as we know with accessibility features, it gives you a lot of control over the device because it has to in order to actually do what the features are setting out to do. From there, the malware is looking to get as much information as possible about the device, including names of Android packages, to see for a comparison as to what it's seeing and what its targets are. And then it starts to actually collect that information, things like device PIN, financial information, personal data, keystrokes, passwords. So for any of you that have copy pasted your password from a Notes app into a banking application or from LastPass into a banking application, that's the type of stuff that it's collecting. Next, it actually exfiltrates that data to its C2 server. But here's where things get interesting, because it exfiltrates that data, the attacker goes to log into these accounts, and you think, haha, not a problem. I have two-factor authentication. I'll catch you doing this and stop you. However, they still have access to your phone. So that message comes in, they read it, they send it to the attacker, and then they delete it. And you never know that your account has been accessed. And they're now into it. So it's a really interesting attack that illustrates how powerful mobile devices have become and how important it is that we really take this threat seriously. And also, I really like MITRE ATT&CK, and there's a version that's for enterprise. It's for those of you who don't know, I don't know the extent to which you know about MITRE ATT&CK, but it's a knowledge base of adversary techniques and tactics, and you can also actually use it to improve your security posture internally through red teaming and purple teaming. And they actually, so they have the enterprise version, which is all about like laptops, targeting laptops, things like that. But they also have MITRE ATT&CK for mobile, which is really cool. I think it's very impressive. So we were actually able to map all of the tactics and techniques that we saw in this attack to MITRE ATT&CK for mobile. So huge advocate for MITRE ATT&CK, and I think that's very cool of them to do. We also saw, especially early on, that attackers were really leveraging COVID fears, purporting to be World Health Organization mobile applications in order to get people to download, and it actually ends up being malware. And of course, this is not an official website. It's not affiliated with the World Health Organization at all, but desperate times, people make mistakes. And so back to a little bit of what I was saying earlier, is the answer another point solution? Because of course, vendors will make you think that. I don't think that it is. I think that no one wants another console to monitor. Like I said, 25 different tools in the SOC at a minimum. It's too much. And it's not sustainable because mobile devices aren't where this ends. It's where this not begins, but continues. It's not just, oh, we're adding mobile devices. There's going to be something next, whether it's Elon Musk's chip in the brain or whatever the case may be that we need to address. And I think that in order for enterprises to effectively evolve and handle all of the load of technology that's coming at them, we need something that's more agile and dynamic than just throwing money at another vendor. And further, as we saw in the entry point into the enterprise, attacks don't stop at a single place. So if you're actually going to know the full scope of something that's happening, you need a solution that isn't just for mobile devices or for traditional endpoints or for the network. You need a really much more complete understanding of what's happening. And further, it needs to be a unifier that isn't human, because right now we are leading people to the expectation that the analyst is going to connect all of these dots and figure this all out. But really, at the scale at which a lot of enterprises handle these problems, and for the size of the security teams that have to handle these problems, it's, if not ridiculous already, it's getting ridiculous. So I think that what's really important is we need to use mobile as a blueprint for how we should approach these types of problems in the future, and how we can think about this thoughtfully instead of just throwing another point solution at the problem. Because this is not the end. We have IoT devices to consider. We have the next generation of devices to consider. We have a whole new environment to consider at home. And when we're thinking about what the future is going to look like, it's really about thinking about how we interpret the data that we have coming into the enterprise, how we understand it, and how we can use that to actually stop threats no matter what device is coming in. And I'm not saying that that is by just monitoring the network, obviously, because we're all at home now. But it's not going to be by just continuing to add on custom solutions to one problem. So thank you guys so much. I hope you like this talk. You can find me on Twitter at Hackerbella, and I'm happy to answer any questions you guys have.
So feel free to unmute yourself if you had a question to ask. They're still gathering their thoughts, I guess, too. So how I'm really this is Kyle. So I'm really into the efficacy of the security controls. How do you do that for like a mobile problem? Do you have any idea of like those type of solutions? Meaning, like, say, we want to be able to, how do we discover these things in the first place, or how do we make sure that our other controls, like not necessarily point solutions or any solutions, that type of stuff would be prove that they're actually doing what they're say they're doing? That's why I see a lot of mobile AVs and other things of that nature flying around, but I don't really know if I should trust them necessarily, especially at the enterprise level.
Totally, because it's like first off, if you're not a mobile security expert, that's kind of this big gray area, because there's a lot of information going around that's like, oh, well, you don't have enough access into the iOS operating system in order to actually prevent anything. And there are a lot of problems there. I think that it is very challenging. And actually, I think that one of the core problems is that it is so early. Like this research that our team did on this mobile malware attack, it was very, very early stage. And it was not something that we saw a lot of people reporting on or talking about because it was such a new threat. So I think that things like efficacy of the information that we have coming in is something that we need more of a body of research and understanding before we can start judging. And yeah, so I don't have a great answer for that.
So I think they're still trying to get to just the general enterprise level. So I mean, that's exactly a tough one. So mobile is just another, like you said, it's kind of another step, and it's hard, very hard.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's why I really do believe that it needs to be just another part of the system, because we don't want to have to go through all of this crap again for another type of device. You know, it should just integrate into a system that we already have that is adaptable, that is flexible. I also, great comment about the Malicious Life podcast. I love that one too. Security podcasts. We actually have another security podcast that's by our CISO. It's called Security All In, and it's on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. It's more for the CISO level. We have another one coming out too with the Cybersecurity Collaborative, and any other podcasts that I'd really recommend. Darknet Diaries, of course. I love Darknet Diaries. And there's actually a Malicious Life crossover episode too, so that's worth checking out.
Anyone else have some questions to ask Allie about Google? Or the other research that they've done besides your one, the one she talked about here? Well, I don't know if I need to unmute anybody, but
I think it's a complicated problem domain. I mean, it goes beyond just cell phones. It's also like IoT devices are a huge attack vector. And
Yeah.
I mean, how do you control all that stuff, particularly if they aren't devices you own? I mean, in my organization, if you use your personal device, then you cede all your rights and they can wipe your phone at any time because of the security threat.
Totally. It's especially now that we're at home too, the lines are so blurry because if anything, I expect that in the new year, attackers are going to be looking at more ways to target the at-home setups we already have, like attacks on routers and things like that. And so, and home automation, for example. And we certainly don't want our organizations having anything to do with our home automation. I think that it needs a more thoughtful approach because right now it is just kind of a mess. And that's how it feels.
like you said, that's at the enterprise level. The home automation is just crazy too. So
Yeah.
how do you deal with that? How do you deal with all the IoTs that are coming from the home that are on the same network as now your enterprise device, that maybe you're using a true VPN and liking everything, but there's so many things that they want to do off VPNs due to just, hey, their cloud services anyways.
Totally. Yeah, you're now connecting, like say they use home automation to get in, you're now connecting your corporate laptop to that network, and they don't even have to access the enterprise network. They could just send the CEO a Slack message that says, hey, check out this link.
Yep,
from your laptop.
grab the creds.
And that's a great way to move laterally.
We have users that off the VPN use their work machines for personal things. And one of them got infected with ad malware and then reconnected to the VPN, and that injected malware into our Jira system. And I had to go remediate all of those infected tickets.
That's horrible. Yeah, we had a similar thing happen at work because it is just so weird working from home. They were using their personal laptop, a very, very dedicated person at the company who works so hard, and she was using her personal laptop for work, and she actually got infected with some malware. Luckily, our team caught it very quickly, of course, because we monitor these things very quickly, but it was still a scary moment. It was like last week.
And remediation cleanup is so hard to do, like Bailey said there.
Yeah, it's not fun.
Can't just go down to the IT support desk anymore if you're old offices and get a new laptop if need be.
Yeah, I think that causes more problems too, because even communicating security issues to the broader company or communicating policy updates to the broader company can be challenging now. And you can't just go like, you can't develop a rapport with new employees coming on by like meeting around the water cooler or getting coffee. It's weird. And like, I think that there's a lot of value in providing security knowledge, just making sure that people feel safe and comfortable coming to you and talking to you about it and being able to ask the quote unquote dumb questions. But it's much harder to do that now that we don't actually see each other face to face.
Too many people are used to security being the people who know. It's like, no, we want to help.
Yeah, exactly.
We want to help and educate and help with everything so your personal stuff and your professional things are both secure, because you never know, like we said, how mobile can be. You're using your personal tool for your enterprise work, and therefore it's a mobile.
Yeah.
Surprise. All right. Well, any more questions, folks? we might just wrap it up here and say thank you, Allie.
Thank you. It was really a pleasure to be here with you guys. And yeah, have a great rest of your week.
And next meeting for OWASP will be in January, at the end of January, for Josh Sokol doing the, what is it, the crypto party again. So send an email to Josh about that if you'd like to do it. His contact information is actually on austin.owasp.org. And he's doing anywhere from lightning talks about crypto to longer talks, just kind of depends on who he gets. So once again, that's it for chapter meeting for October. Thanks everyone. Thanks, Allie. Have a good day.
Have a good one, everyone.